A few months ago, a woman called me in tears. Her 12-year-old son had been attacked and bitten by a dog while he was walking home from school. No warning, no barking, the dog just came charging out of nowhere from a neighbor's yard. Now, she rushed him to the ER, but he ended up needing more than a dozen stitches in his arm. The scarring was serious. It changed how he looked, and it wasn't something he could easily hide. Kids at school noticed, and so did he. And that kind of visible injury can follow a kid around a long time, both physically and emotionally. Now, Mom wasn't looking to sue anyone. She just didn't understand who was responsible or how her son's medical bills were going to get paid. And the dog had acted aggressively before in the neighborhood, but no one had done anything about it. And now her son was hurt and she didn't know what to do next. Maybe this sounds familiar to you, and that's exactly why I made this video. My name's Kevin Jones. I'm a personal injury attorney, and in this video, I'm going to walk you through how Missouri's dog bite laws work, who can be held responsible for a dog bite injury, and spoiler alert, it's not always just the dog owner, what kind of compensation you can recover, and some things you can do to help you get a fair outcome for your case. Let's start with what to do right after the bite. The first 24 hours are critical. Get medical attention, even for what looks like a minor puncture, because dog bites can become easily infected. Then report the bite to animal control so that there's a formal record. Next, you want to take photos of your injuries. If you can, get the name and address of the dog's owner. If anyone saw what happened, you want to get their contact information too. These simple steps will help you preserve your options and strengthen your case. All right, so now that you know those simple steps of what to do right after a dog bite, let's talk about who can actually be held responsible and how Missouri law sorts that out. Missouri law says that if you own or control a dog and it bites someone without provocation, you're responsible. That's called strict liability. And there are three types of people who can be held responsible: owners of the dog, possessors of the dog, and harborers of the dog. Now, owners are obvious. They're the people who legally own the dog. Possessors are people who don't own the dog, but they have control over it. Someone dog sitting, someone feeding or walking the dog every day. The strict liability rule applies to both owners and possessors. And then there are harborers. These are people who allow a dog to live as part of their household, even if they don't control it. Think of someone who lets a spouse or a kid or even a roommate keep a dog in the home. That can make them a harborer. But just owning the land or letting someone keep a dog on your property, that's not enough. For example, if dad lets his adult son live in a separate house on the property and the son owns a dog, that doesn't necessarily make dad a harborer. Now, this distinction matters for landlords in particular. Most landlords aren't owners, they aren't possessors, and they usually aren't harborers. They rent out space, but they don't make the dog part of their own household. Under Missouri law, landlords aren't on the hook for dog bites just because they own the property where the dog bite happened. Unless they own, control, or harbor the dog, it's difficult to hold them legally responsible for the dog's behavior. Once we figure out who's responsible for the dog bite, then we need to figure out what exactly are they responsible for. Now, after a dog bite, most people think of medical bills, and that's a big part of it. But there's more. Let's say you've been bitten while you were walking in your neighborhood. You go to the ER, you get stitches, maybe miss a few days of work. You might have medical bills, you might have lost wages, and you might have pain that lasts for weeks. Or imagine a parent whose child is bitten at a friend's house. The child needs plastic surgery to repair the scar, and now they're terrified of dogs. Well, those emotional effects, they matter too. So here's what you can recover compensation for in a dog bite injury case. First, we have medical expenses, and those include the ER visits, any stitches, follow-up appointments, possible surgery, physical therapy, any future treatment that might be needed to repair the damage to your skin or your body. Then you have lost income. Those are the wages that you miss from being unable to work, or if you had to stay home to take care of a child who'd been injured from a dog bite. Then we have pain and suffering. Those are the damages for the physical pain and the emotional distress that you've experienced because of the dog bite. And another big one is disfigurement and scarring. That's the visible injuries that impact your appearance or that may require plastic surgery to repair. And last but not least, you have emotional trauma. And this may include your ongoing anxiety, fear of dogs, maybe nightmares, or behavioral changes, especially common in children. Now, every case is different, and it all depends on how bad the injuries are, how it affected your life, and what kind of documentation and evidence you've got to support your case. So now let's talk about how the other side may try to avoid liability. There are a few defenses that insurance companies love to bring up, so it's important to understand what they are and how to respond to them. If the victim provoked the dog, that can reduce or eliminate liability. But provocation isn't always obvious. Throwing something at the dog, stepping on its tail, startling it while it sleeps, or threatening its dog owner, those probably count. Walking up to pet a dog or passing the dog on the sidewalk, that usually doesn't. But these distinctions can make or break your case. If the insurance company frames it as provocation, they'll use that to try to deny your claim or reduce what they owe. But it's not enough for them to just say, you provoked the dog. It's their defense, so it's their job to prove it. So we make them back it up. What evidence do they have? Who saw it? What exactly happened? And if they can't point to something concrete, then they don't get to lean on that defense. At the same time, we dig into the details. What the victim was doing, where were they, why were they there, how was the dog acting, and whether any witnesses actually saw what happened. That's how you push back and keep the focus on the dog owner's responsibility. Next, let's talk about trespassing. This is another defense insurance companies try to raise to avoid liability. Under Missouri law, dog owners may not be liable if the person bitten was trespassing. So the key question is, was the person lawfully on the property or not? Now, this isn't always black and white. For example, a child who runs into a neighbor's yard to chase a ball is usually not considered a trespasser. On the other hand, someone sneaking into a backyard at night without permission likely could be considered a trespasser. The courts consider a variety of factors like age, whether there were any no trespassing signs, and if there was a fence, or whether the person had an implied or legal reason to be on the property, like a delivery driver or an invited guest. When the defense brings up the trespassing issue, we push back with context. Why was the person there? What did the property look like? Were there any signs up? Did the bite happen within a fenced-off area? Did the dog owner do anything to make the area look more open or welcoming? Those details can make or break the trespassing defense. Another defense that comes up a lot involves the idea that a person bitten cannot recover anything because they were partly at fault. A lot of people assume that if they made a mistake or could have done something differently, they can't recover anything at all. Well, that's not how it works in Missouri. Missouri follows a rule called comparative fault. And basically what it means is if you're 20% at fault, your recovery gets reduced by 20%, but you can still recover the other 80%. We see this a lot in cases where someone tried to break up a fight between their dog and another dog, or maybe they tried to protect someone else from a dog that was charging at them. The key here is documenting what really happened and making sure the insurance company doesn't exaggerate your role in it. But the main point is, don't assume partial fault means no case. Often it just means we have to be smart about how we tell your story. Sometimes the biggest reason people hesitate to make a claim after a dog bite is because the dog owner is someone they know, maybe a friend or a neighbor or even a relative, and they don't want to create a conflict. They just want help with medical bills. Well, the good news is that in many cases, that help comes from insurance, not directly out of the dog owner's pocket. Homeowners and renters insurance often cover dog bite claims, even if the bite didn't happen at the dog owner's home. But here's where things can get a little tricky. Some policies exclude certain breeds, like pit bulls, for example, or German shepherds. Others set low limits for animal-related injuries, and that's why it's important to get a copy of the policy as soon as possible. If there's no coverage or if the owner refuses to cooperate, then we have to look at other angles. Is there a harborer or a possessor of the dog? Did the dog owner have any personal assets? In some cases, the dog owner denies everything. They say it wasn't their dog, or they stop returning phone calls. And when that happens, we start tracking down the truth, talking to witnesses, pulling animal control records, checking doorbell footage, using subpoenas if needed. And of course, insurance companies have their own playbook: delay, deny, and downplay. If they don't respond quickly or fairly, there are ways to keep things moving forward. First, you can ask for a written explanation of any denial or delay. Don't just take a verbal brush off. Second, you can request a full copy of the policy. You're entitled to see the coverage terms if you're making a claim against an insurance policy. Third, you can use documentation. Keep a written timeline of every conversation, voicemail, and message with the insurance company. This can make a difference if they try to shift their story later. If the insurance company drags its feet, you may need to file a formal complaint or pursue discovery through legal channels, and that can include subpoenas or depositions to get the answers they won't give voluntarily. The point is, you don't have to accept silence or excuses. There are tools available, and using them early can keep your case from getting bogged down and keep it moving forward. All right, now let's talk about what you'll need to prove your case and why it matters. The stronger your evidence is, the harder it's going to be for the insurance company to deny or downplay your claim. So here are the categories of evidence that we try to run down in our dog bite cases. First, there's injury photos. Take clear photos of your injuries from multiple angles. It includes close-ups to show the detail of the wound and wider shots to show where the injuries are located on your body. Photograph them over time as well, right after the bite, during the healing process, and then once the wound is closed and healed fully. You'll want to use natural light if you can and avoid heavy shadows or glare. Then there's medical documentation. Save every medical bill you get, from ER visits, follow-ups, prescriptions, therapy. Keep all the receipts and the documents related to your care. Then you'll want to create a log that tracks your recovery, and this should include your symptoms, your doctor's recommendations, missed work, any follow-up appointments you had, and if future treatment is expected, then you'll want to get that in writing along with a cost estimate. This will help you establish your medical damages, which can be important and tie into the amount you can recover in a settlement. Then there's witness information. If anyone saw the attack or what led up to the attack, get their full name and contact info. Eyewitnesses can help confirm where it happened, how it happened, and whether the bite was unprovoked. Then there's animal control or police reports. Animal control or police reports often include statements from the dog owner, the witnesses, and the responding officers. They may also show whether the dog has a history of aggression, which matters if the owner tries to claim that this came out of nowhere or that you provoked the dog. These reports can also help if the dog owner fled or the owner isn't known, because animal control may have reports from previous complaints that can help you identify the dog and the dog's owner. And let's not forget about surveillance and doorbell camera footage. Security camera footage can be some of the most powerful evidence in a dog bite case, and these days doorbell cams often capture the attack or what happened right before or after. So knock on nearby doors or ask if anyone has any footage, especially within the 24 to 48 hours after the bite. If you report the incident, then animal control or the police will often try to get this footage for you. But even if the bite itself wasn't recorded, video can help confirm the dog's presence on the property, its behavior, or who was walking it. Now, when the dog bite involves a child, it raises additional concerns that parents need to be ready for, especially when it comes to how the injury affects their child over time. The physical injuries might need more care than expected. Kids sometimes require follow-up surgeries as they grow, and scarring can become more noticeable. Emotional trauma is also common. Some kids develop a lasting fear of dogs or become more anxious in general. Problems at school are another red flag. A child might miss a class for medical appointments or lose focus or become withdrawn. Some even get teased because they have visible scars. So to protect your child's claim, you need to document how the bite is affecting them in everyday life. Here are a few ways that you can do that. First, you can keep a written journal of the changes that you notice. Are they having nightmares? Are they acting differently around animals? Are they avoiding places they used to enjoy? You can also talk to teachers, school counselors, or your child's pediatrician. Ask them to note changes in your child's behavior, concentration, or social interaction. Consider having your child evaluated by a counselor or mental health professional if they're struggling with fear, anxiety, or trauma, because getting treatment not only helps them heal, it also documents those symptoms in a way that supports their claim. If your child is willing, you might also consider taking short videos of them about what happened, or capturing moments when they show fear or distress, like passing a neighbor's dog or refusing to go outside. This kind of footage can help show the emotional toll in a way that written notes sometimes can't. This kind of documentation also helps paint a full picture of how the bite impacted your child, physically, emotionally, and socially. It's not just about telling the story, it's about showing it. That's how you can ensure your child gets a full and fair compensation for what he or she went through. Now, if your child gets a settlement, Missouri law adds some additional procedural steps to ensure the child's settlement money is protected. And depending on the amount, the court may have to approve the settlement. And regardless of whether court approval is required, arrangements still need to be made to ensure the money is placed in a protected account and used solely for the child's benefit. That ensures it's safeguarded for the child's future medical or personal needs. If you've been dealing with the aftermath of a dog bite, especially if it involved a child, there's a lot to consider. Knowing what steps to take early on can make a big difference. Make sure the bite gets reported, gather evidence, get treatment, and document everything. And if questions come up or you're getting pushback from the insurance company, it helps to talk it through with someone who handles these cases every day. If you'd like us to take a look at your case and give you our take, use the link in the description below to get a free case strategy call, or just give us a call at 816-EMPOWER. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.